I'm here today with Martin Neff from ABB Switzerland. You are head of the automation department at corporate research. And today at the St.Gallen Forum for Management of Renewable Energies, you gave a talk about energy storage. So I would like to know from you, what are ABB's activities in energy storage focusing on?
Okay, there are many different activities from ABB within energy storage. First and foremost, we're a system integrator, so we do not produce the primary storage technology like batteries. Where we are very big is on the whole inverter side. For example, for pumped hydro, we build the inverters. We build the inverters to connect batteries to the grid, and of course in all the relevant control systems. We also have a good business in charging infrastructure, for example, for electric vehicles.
Okay. And where do you see the highest potential for technological progress in the next couple of years?
A very big driver is generally the cost of the primary storage technology, in other words, batteries. So whenever we have incremental cost or even, say, revolutionary breakthroughs on batteries, we'll see many more applications that are open. I also hope that long term we get good advances in the power to gas area, because I think the methane storage or hydrogen storage will actually have a very good opportunity for long-term storage of large amounts of energy, especially for mobility. But that's really into the future. We'll see how that develops.
And coming back to battery storage, what are the conditions for battery storage to become an interesting business case in combination with solar PV self-consumption?
The key thing here is essentially, at the moment we have feed-in tariffs for most renewable energies, which means that a provider of solar energy or also wind can always feed into the grid, so there's no motivation for them, let's say, to store energy or arbitrage energy. So I think the big business case really, once the market goes closer, say, to the true cost, then the whole auxiliary services for the grid, they have to be there to keep the grid stable. And that's also when most of the storage technologies become a lot more sensible. So when we look at, for example, home storage, at the moment we're seeing a big shift towards self-consumption rules, which is definitely a very strong incentive to local storage if the economies work. And if we further go in the future, when we see zero electricity prices around noontime, which is already happening in the wholesale market, if that's passed on to customers, then there'll also be a stronger motivation to have local energy storage. So it's essentially a question of the overall energy market. How does that one operate?
Let's talk about policy for a moment. If you were to talk to an important policymaker, imagine someone very important, what would be your advice? What policies are necessary in order to achieve an economic operation of storage systems in the near future?
Okay. The most important thing is that we have to look at the energy system as a whole. So as long as policy only focuses on, for example, fostering renewable generation without looking at what's the impact on the grid, unless that is happening, then we'll never have an economic operation. But the moment that is accepted, that with renewable energy integration we also have to bear somehow the integration costs, then it becomes a market. And we see that, for example, in the US, in California, where we have rules that give a strong incentive to have very fast-acting units to support the grid for frequency regulation. And there, for example, units that do it using battery storage, they can react much faster, they can react in a much better controlled way without oscillations, for example. And if they earn more money than, say, a traditional generator that provides the same service, then you have a very good business case.
Okay, interesting. Do you have other examples of policy frameworks in some countries that have worked well so far, that have helped to achieve a wider deployment of energy storage already?
I mean, on one hand, there obviously are some government subsidies, for example, for private usage that's being introduced in Germany. I think in Japan we have some subsidies. Of course, that helps. But I think what's really the right way to go is to enforce stricter grid codes for everybody. Like in Puerto Rico, for example, we have ramp rate limitations on large plants, whether they're renewable or whether they're traditional. If that's enforced everywhere in an equal way, then I think we have a strong business case.